Hey everyone, this is Lori Barnes back with another full moon video for you. It's a tricky one with Mercury and Mars retrograde, and Mercury goes direct on the full moon. Stay tuned to learn more. The Gemini full moon takes place this Sunday, December the 15th. If you're on the west coast of the US, it'll be at 1 o'clock a.m. early in the morning, so really Saturday overnight. If you're on the east coast, it'll be at 4 a.m. in the morning. In Rome, Italy, it'll be at 10 a.m. in the morning. And this full moon will be at 23 degrees of Gemini. It will be across from the sun at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. Some of the Gemini keywords are duality. Gemini is known to be very versatile, to be quick-witted and clever and quick with the comebacks. It is an air element sign. All of the air element signs are social and focus on communication. Gemini is also a mutable sign, which makes it extra versatile, extra diverse. If you have a lot of Gemini in your chart, or if you're a Gemini sun, moon, or rising sign, you are probably known to be quite chatty or enjoy conversation and are able to have conversations with many different types of topics and with different people and culture. You're a curious type of person. You can have two conversations at the same time because Gemini is the twins. It's about duality. Some of the shadow side of Gemini is to be curt or short. If you want to get the truth or a blunt response, Gemini can be quite good at that. Gemini can also be a bit nervous and have some ruminating thoughts. And because they like to talk so much, there can be a more shallow nature to conversation because you kind of skip around to many different things. And we're going to talk more about the axis with Sagittarius, which has that opposite point of view of wanting to kind of get more deeper into the philosophy. The psychological need of Gemini is to communicate and to have intellectually stimulating conversation. There needs to be some sort of mental connection when Gemini is involved. The archetypes associated with Gemini are the salesperson, the alchemist, the magician, trickster, and communicator. The symbol of Gemini is the twins. Gemini really represents the traits of the twins through its duality and its ability to adapt to different environments and to have different types of conversations. You can go light, you can go dark. It's that duality. There is a curiosity that comes with Gemini and brings this well-rounded perspective of the twins, of seeing different perspectives. Gemini is like a social butterfly. You can kind of float around to different conversations and different people. So again, bringing in that duality. The quick thinking that goes with Gemini is about, having those multiple angles, being able to talk to different people, kind of having those two faces, or like a chameleon. If you're talking to somebody who's interested in business, then you talk about business stuff because you know a little bit about everything. But then if you go and you're talking to somebody, you can easily move into politics or some other subject you're interested in. The latest New York Times bestseller, you've probably read it and you can talk about it. So that's your ability to be versatile and chameleon-like. There are the shadow side, the trickster, which is one of the archetypes. It is associated with Loki. There's the mythology of the trickster. There's this idea of two personalities. It's like which face is talking right now, or which part of your personality is talking. One of the more shadow or challenging sides of Gemini is that you can be accused of being two-faced because as you're this chameleon and you're fitting into these different environments, people will be maybe surprised to see you in this particular light when they're more accustomed to seeing you in that light. So two-faced is often associated with a more negative type of trait, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It just means that you are able to show different faces as needed in the environment. And that's that versatility of the mutable signs, but it's, I think, extra prominent in Gemini because you are that air sign as well. Now, the full moon is always in opposition. The sun is always across from the moon when we have a full moon, and that's how we see the full moon in the sky, the full amount of light. And that is coming from the sun. So it's important to think about the sun when we talk about a full moon. There are 6 pairs of signs that are always across from each other. So anytime we have a Gemini full moon, the sun has to be in Sagittarius. So this is bringing in Sagittarian qualities, and that's adventure, exploration, having that visionary approach or the big picture approach. Both Gemini and Sagittarius love to learn. They will want to learn in different ways. Gemini is more associated with the rote learning, the type of learning you get in primary school, whereas Sagittarius is about the underlying meaning, learning the why behind time learning something. And it can be more like college, the type of education that you choose versus the type of education that you have to have, at least in the developed countries. Some of the shadow side of Sagittarius is that Sagittarians can become quite dogmatic. Once they decide on what their belief system is, they can become very attached to it and then kind of preach it out like a dogma. They can also be very curt, just like a Gemini. There can be some tactless words that come out of their mouth. And usually it's not to be mean, but it's to be honest. It is a fire sign. So Sagittarius is a fire sign. This brings enthusiasm to this full moon. There can be more spontaneity and there can be more of a desire for independence. Both Sagittarius and Gemini are mutable. So both of these signs are flexible, adaptable, and resourceful. And the psychological need of Sagittarius is to explore, experience, and grow. Sagittarius is the sign that wants to experience things just for the sake of experiencing them. So this full moon is highlighting this axis of Sagittarius and Gemini. So we are looking at the same axis, but the two ends of it, and that continuum, that spectrum of energy, where Gemini is really thriving on facts and communicating and sharing those facts, likes to gather a lot of knowledge and likes to be logical about it. Sagittarius is more about the philosophy, the why, what's underneath this, what is the belief system that drives this learning, that drives this curiosity. So that is what's highlighted at this full moon. Getting into the vibe of the full moon, I want to touch on the different energetics that will be happening over the full moon, and then I'm going to show you the charts and how I'm pulling this information out of the chart. We have this reflective and introspective energy happening. We have retrogrades going on, so reflecting and looking inside is going to be an important type of work that you can do with yourself over this weekend. And we're looking at balancing the detail and the big picture. So that's that axis that I was just talking about between Sagittarius and Gemini. There is going to be, I think, a lot of communication this weekend. There's just this energy of getting out and maybe busy too, like a lot of different communications, maybe a lot of small conversations, or you're doing a lot of shopping. So maybe you're having a lot of interactions with different people, the checkout people. Maybe you're talking to people in line. Maybe you're shopping with friends. Maybe you do a big shopping day and then you go have a lunch and just have a day of it. So this could be what you experience this weekend. There is potential for confusion and miscommunication. It's not just the retrogrades. We also have something going on with the Sun and Neptune, and I'm going to show you that configuration. With this Sun-Neptune configuration, there are also positive qualities that can come out of that. So there is more creativity that you can tap into and more artistic inspiration. So if you're an artist, whether you're a professional artist or a hobbyist, maybe you play piano for fun, or maybe you like to sing to the radio, or maybe you like to paint, or maybe you want to do a wine and paint, whatever it is, there can be more inspiration and creativity on tap. And that's a much better way to use the energy than going into that confusion and trying to do things that are against the flow of energy. So if you want to go with the flow, do more creative things, play your instrument, write poetry, journal, paint, whatever it is, that's going to soak up this Sun-Neptune energy in a more pleasant way than having more confusion and fogginess. Now, there is a potential to run into more anger or to get into more power struggles this weekend. Be aware of that. You want to try to detach from any power plays. If you see something that's kind of going in that direction, then opt out, take a break, and remove yourself from those situations. You have been warned, so you know. And when you start seeing that voices are rising and that conflict is going, and it may be politics, it may be family things, who knows what it will be for you. But when you start seeing that happening, just try to detach, take a break, say, I need to go, or let's pick up this conversation later. There's going to be some tension that leads to growth. I'm going to show you that configuration in a bit, but just know if you feel some tension and you kind of get bummed out about it, change your mindset, change your frame of mind. Ask yourself, how is this pushing me to grow? And with this growth, what can be better? What good can come out of it? Because we do, as humans, tend to resist change sometimes. Unless you have a super mutable chart, you like that kind of environment and maybe you really thrive in a constantly changing environment, but a lot of people don't. And that's what tension usually is. It's pushing you to do something that you don't want to do. If you are one of those people that sticks your heel in the mud and you're like, no, I'm not going to change. I'm going to be stubborn. I'm going to just push, push, push until I get my way. Well, it may not work out for you. So instead think, well, what is the universe trying to show me? What if I did alter something? I'm trying to shove the square into the circle and it's not going. So what can I do different? There's a thing in solution focused therapy that I used to practice, and it said something like, don't expect a different outcome if you keep trying to do the same thing. Try something different if you want a different outcome. That's a vibe that is happening this weekend. There is a call to do hard work. If you put in the effort, you can usually get something out of that. Do go into this weekend with some optimism that if there is hard work to do, or if there is pressure to change, if you put in the work over time, you're going to get something back out of it. It's going to be worth your effort. There is a need for patience and adjustment. Just think about all these vibes that I've shared, and we have the retrogrades. So patience is a virtue, and it is definitely going to be needed this weekend. And you may have to make some adjustments. So instead of resisting it, ask yourself, what adjustments can I make that I would be happy with, that might lead me to a better path, that once it's done, I'm going to be relieved that it's done. And lastly, focus on gratitude and release. This is a full moon. That means that something has come to culmination in this cycle. We have a cycle every single month. The moon phase is all about this new moon to the culmination at the full moon, back to the new moon. And each time it's a new cycle, usually in a new sign. Sometimes we have those blue moons where we have a new moon 2 months in a row in the same sign, but that's pretty rare. And that is definitely not this month. So focus on gratitude and release. Here are some ideas of what you can do to actually work with this energy. 3 activities for you. The first one is do your retrograde reflection. We only have a few more days of Mercury retrograde. It's going to go direct on Sunday, the same day as the full moon. So take these next few days and use it for Mercury retrograde projects. The second idea I have for you is to do a meditation, like a duality meditation, where you're intentionally focusing your meditation to look at 2 sides of something. Think about something that you're very logical about, something that's like facts or rote learning, and then go to the other side and ask yourself, well, what is the deeper belief system that is under this? What makes me take these facts and believe something about them? What is my belief system doing with these facts, this rote learning? I read something, I learn something, and then our philosophical belief system underneath it gives us a perspective on that that may not be the same as somebody else who's learned the same information. So in this meditation, you are embodying the twins. You're looking inside of yourself as if there's 2 people in there having a conversation. And then the last thing is to actually write that gratitude letter, which can be about releasing something. It is not a letter that you have to give to someone, although you are welcome to do that. You might want to write a releasing letter to someone or about something in a relationship that needs to be released. Maybe there's been a grudge that has been between you and somebody else for a long time, and it's time to bury the hatchet. Maybe you write that instead of saying it and give that letter to that person. Or you write that letter and you don't give it to the person. It's more about you. Like maybe you want to release something. You can do other things. You can burn it as like a purification process. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just an activity idea that you can use. And it doesn't have to be about people, by the way. Maybe you want to release a habit. Maybe you want to stop smoking. Maybe you want to stop eating so much chocolate. Whatever it is, you can write about it and then use that as an act for releasing something. The Mercury retrograde cycle is happening in Sagittarius, which, as you know, is the sign of the sun, and the sun is lighting up the full moon. Sagittarius and Gemini, those signs are very activated, and with Mercury retrograde there as well, we have just a few more days with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius before it goes direct, and it's going to do that with the full moon, and I think that's just a lot of energy to work with in a good way. If you don't know Mercury's retrograde, if you don't follow astrology and know these things, then you are probably not sure what's going on in the world. Like, oh my gosh, there's so much craziness. I mean, I hear this all the time just from friends and family and the news, and this energy is there. We know it's there, but you are informed. You are watching this video, so you can do something about it. Take these next few days until Mercury goes direct. Work on whatever it is that you're working on. So here are the dates, and I'm going to give you some more information on what to do with the Mercury retrograde. It's a good time for creative problem solving. Sagittarius is a fire sign, so there is that extra creativity and some passion to put into that. Maybe there's something that's really been hanging you up, it's bugging you, and you want to resolve it. This is a good time to focus on that. You have the mental energy from Gemini, you have that full moon, and then you have Mercury in Sagittarius to really problem solve that. So you can breathe new life into a stagnant project, right? Mercury retrograde is about looking back to things that are unfinished, things that had been started in the past but are not finished. Review, refine, realign. That is my mantra for Mercury retrograde. I would take that and apply it to what is needed in your life to be refined and realigned. We are fully in the holiday season now, at least if you celebrate the holidays, and it's a great time to slow down and simplify. Even though Mercury goes direct on Sunday, it will still be in its post-shadow phase until January the 2nd. So the rest of the holiday season, we still have this energy of the Mercury retrograde to work with. So try to slow down and simplify. A lot of people take time off, so it does tend to be a slower part of the year, and so it really syncs nicely if you want to take some time off and work on your Mercury retrograde stuff. You want to balance optimism with practical action. Sagittarius is that optimistic sign that can sometimes take on too much, say yes to too many things because they want to do them all, but it's not always practical. So during this Mercury retrograde, think about what is possible and practical. Watch out for scattered thoughts and brain fog. That tends to happen under a Mercury retrograde, and with the position of Neptune and the sun, it brings in even more fogginess. Again, slow down, take more time. That should help you get through this holiday season and Mercury retrograde. 'Tis the season to be jolly, as they say, at least in the US or for those countries that celebrate the holidays. If you can do things that bring you more joy, this really works with all this energy. I do want to give you that caution about holiday purchases. Do not run out and buy stuff on Sunday because Mercury is going direct. That is probably the most potent time for purchase decisions that you will regret. So don't do it. Just don't do it. Wait another week. I know that sounds terrible because then you're like, well, all the stuff will be picked over. But if you can, try to wait and at least wait a couple of days. If you really want to get something soon, just don't do it Sunday. Wait till Tuesday, wait till Wednesday, because it is possible that you may regret your purchase. If you're buying tech items, get that extra warranty. If you're just not sure what to get for somebody in terms of a gift, get them a gift card. That's always safe because then the actual item that's being purchased can be purchased later, but you are able to get the gift now. As always, if you want to know more about how this is going to show up for you personally, you want to look at the Sagittarius house in your natal chart and the topics and themes associated with that. It's going to give you more information. Mars is also retrograde. The role of Mars is different than Mercury. So Mars is about action. It's about your physical energy, how you take action, and it can relate to your inner motivation and inner drive to actually get things done. I like to say that Mercury is thinking about picking up your mug of coffee to drink it, and Mars is you picking up that mug of coffee and drinking it. That's how to differentiate. So think about your energy levels. Are you more fatigued? Are you wanting to look at your 2025 plan and figure out where do I want to put my energy? That is a really great way to use this energy, especially right now with Mercury retrograde. So it's the thinking and the thoughts and the strategy coupled with your physical taking action. Think about, what does my calendar look like? Look at your year and where did all your time go? And were you putting your action and energy into things that aren't taking you where you want to go? With Mars retrograde, it's a good time to look at that and say, well, I'm going to start cutting these things out of my calendar. I'm going to eliminate things that are getting in the way of the more important things. So that is a good way to work with the Mars retrograde. Here are the dates. It's going to cross over two signs. It's in Leo now. Mars went retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo, and it's moving backwards through Leo. It's going to move back into Cancer on January 6th. I did talk about this before because things that came up for you in October when the pre-shadow phase of Mars retrograde started may have given you some insight as to how to work with this Mars retrograde now that it is retrograde. But you're going to want to look at those signs or those two houses in your chart where Leo and Cancer are. Those topic and themes are what are going to be highlighted for you during the Mars retrograde. You have the dates here as to the end of the retrograde cycle and the end of the shadow. Here are the aspects supporting the vibe information that I shared with you. We know that a full moon is always an opposition between the sun and the moon. This is the chart of the full moon without houses because it's going to depend on where you are. So you really have to take that out when we're looking at this, generally speaking, because it's different based on where you're located. But the idea, the energy behind the full moon is this rote learning and factual knowledge as it's opposed to or across from the deeper philosophical meaning, the why underneath. So think about that. How are you balancing these two things? Or are you even connecting them? I think maybe sometimes we don't think about that enough, but this would be a good time to think about that. Something that you've learned, like, what do you actually believe about that? How does that fit into your value system? That's what you want to do with this full moon. And the full moon passes quickly because the moon moves quickly, but the sun is in Sagittarius for a month. So we still have about a week to work with Sagittarius energy before we move on to the energy when the sun moves into Capricorn. And by the way, that will be the winter solstice. So that's an important time of the year to look at those extremes. In the northern hemisphere, it's the longest night, and if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's the longest day. So it's really showing us, nature is really showing us these extremes, and where the equinoxes is where we have equal light. So it's a good time to think about, where am I out of balance, which is generally a lot of what I've talked about today. The sun and the moon have that square with Neptune. I brought that up earlier, that there's that inspired creativity and that there can be art from tension. How many times have we heard an artist talk about how they wrote a hit song after heartbreak, after loss, after some sort of difficult period? So if that's you, if you're experiencing tension or difficulty, channel that into something creative. The warning is that you could feel like you're wasting your effort, like you keep trying to do things, but it just doesn't go anywhere. That's that Neptune fogginess. So watch out for that. Channel it. If that's happening to you, just channel it into something creative. There can be some over optimism and taking on too much, like, yes, I'm going to put up my Christmas tree. I'm going to go through all of my decorations. I'm going to make Christmas cookies. Oh, and then I'm still going to go shopping. Is that really realistic? So those are the kinds of things that can come up. Watch out for that. And it can create confusion, or it can just stop you from getting anything done because you want to do all those things. And then, you're trying to like do this and do that. And then the next thing you know, like your day's gone and you got nothing done. So watch out for those things. The Mercury retrograde is trine the Mars retrograde, which I think is beautiful because working with these two retrogrades together while we have them together, and they're trine. So a trine is a harmonious relationship between these two planets, and they're both in fire signs. Mars is going to move into Cancer and Mercury's post shadow will end. So you really just have the rest of December to use these two together, get things into alignment in both your physical, active expression, how you take action, and your motivation, making you get things done. Mercury is writing the list. It's like, what are you putting on the list? Mars is picking up the pen and the paper and actually writing it down because that's physical action. Combine these two and work with this amazing energy this weekend. Mars retrograde is opposite Pluto and Venus. Now, Pluto and Venus, they have a very wide conjunction. A lot of astrologers wouldn't even consider it a conjunction because it's 9 degrees apart. But when you look at Mars across the way, it's right in the middle, and midpoints are potent places. This is an important configuration to consider. And what you want to be aware of is that this can bring up some underlying anger, and it can manifest in power struggles with others. So I just want you to be aware of that so that you can maintain your composure. That is really the best thing you can do if you do not want it to escalate. Now, if you're one of those people that just likes to get in there and argue and hash it out. You will get to do this, but the warning is it may go too far. So just be aware of that so that you can start pulling back if it does go too far. There's a lot of us who just don't want to engage in it at all. Us non-confrontational Libras, like we may be like, no, I don't want confrontation. I don't want power struggles. I don't want underlying anger to come up and come at me, road rage kind of stuff. So if that's the case, then do your part in diffusing that. Don't engage. Don't shake the beehive, as they say. Don't poke the bear, because it could be more ferocious than you might expect with the retrograde energies and with Pluto involved and with those fire signs, Mars and Mercury in fire signs retrograde. We have a square between Jupiter and Saturn. That is a tension type of relationship, which is good because it pushes us to grow. In the moment, we may not think that's good. But if we use the energy, if we accept the challenge and we say, okay, I will put in the work, that's Saturn, to achieve my goal and my vision, which is Jupiter, this can be a really nice manifestation for you. So this configuration really emphasizes the importance of the hard work, putting in the effort, and your goal, your vision, and having an optimistic outlook for what will result from what you do. If you don't do anything, you're not going to get the benefit or the reward. Saturn does not reward without effort. So keep that in mind. So in your chart, this is what you're looking for. You can see the planets, what sign they're in, and find that sign in your chart, in your natal chart, and you can read about the topics and themes associated with that astrology house, and then you'll be able to understand more about how it's going to show up for you. Here is a list of the different houses and the keywords associated with those houses so you can figure that out on your own. Here is your quote for this month's full moon. Nothing can dim the light which shines from within. And that's Maya Angelou. It's a beautiful quote. I think that goes nicely with our full moon energy. Thank you for watching. I will be back at the end of the month for the Capricorn new moon, which happens on December 30th at 9 degrees. Please check out my website if you'd like to schedule a consultation with me to help better understand how all these energies may work in your chart. See you next time. Ciao.